Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Dr. Evelyn Klein. I'm a speech-language pathologist and I'm a psychologist, and I work as a professor at LaSalle University in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders. Today we're here to talk about a project that we started about a year ago called Snapshots, and it was supported by the LADDER program. The LADDER program is the LaSalle Autism and Developmental Disabilities Educational Resource Center. And what we did as part of my class in teaching autism spectrum disorders with graduate students is we started a process to learn more about transition planning with families who have children with autism spectrum disorder. And so it's my pleasure today. What we're going to do is introduce you to 6 graduate students and also family members who have been dealing with autism through most of their lives. And so what I'd like to tell you now is a little bit about this hot topic of transition planning. Transitions have to take place when an individual starts the teenage years about 14 years old. It's required as part of the IEP process, which is the educational planning, individualized educational planning in schools. And by 21, the transition process is to be finished because school ends and individuals need to have plans in place for their employment, for training, for independent living, and possibly for additional education. And so we wanted to learn more about what is going on with families in the area. And we had students who are here with me today in my graduate program to investigate this. We did an interview and we asked 20 questions to each of the family members. It took about an hour. So what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about some of the data on this. Between 4 and 12% of individuals with autism spectrum are employed, and this is regardless of their intellectual ability. This is the data that's in the country today around the nation. In addition, we know that about 2/3 of the individuals on the autism spectrum who could be attending these transition planning meetings in their schools are actually not attending. And so it's important that we try to get to some of these reasons why and try to include people in their future planning. In addition, what they're saying today is that more of the high schools need to have skill-based learning instead of only academic learning classrooms. So there are some changes in the way, and it relates to a lot of untapped potential. In these interviews that we conducted with the students, conducting them with the family members, we were looking at some specific things that are very helpful to look at. One of them, we want to look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And this is in business applications and also in many workforces. It's called a SWOT analysis, and we thought it would pertain pretty well to helping families. So I'd like to introduce you now to 3 of our graduate students, and I'm going to tell you who they are. We have here Alicia D'Antonio, we have Mindy Catalana, and we have Dana Bilski. Welcome.
Thank you.
So glad you could be here with me today. So I'd like to ask you all a question based on the interviews that you conducted with the families. I'd like to know, and to tell our audience, what did you learn from conducting the interview and what stood out as being important regarding family members and what others can do to help their children in transition planning? Alicia?
I thought the most important thing that I took out of the interviews was the importance of education and increasing awareness of autism spectrum disorders for the families, for the community, and for professionals.
Wonderful. Mindy?
I thought one of the most important things I learned was the importance of advocacy and fighting for what your child needs and fighting for the services, and those services can really set your child up for success.
Thank you, I agree. Dana?
I found doing your own research, going out and finding topics or other information that best interest your child really does help and helps with the transition years.
Oh, that's great. Do you have any examples to clarify those situations, what you discovered during the interview process?
So some of the examples I took from the interview, this mom specifically talked about how when her son was diagnosed, there wasn't a lot of information or awareness available about autism spectrum disorders. So even just having that available to help her find somewhere to start would be beneficial. The community didn't really understand her son and the diagnosis, so education would have helped them. And with professionals, her son is a teenager and he's nonverbal, and they're still kind of struggling to find a functional means of communication for him. So professionals need to be very educated as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Does anybody else have something to add to that?
The lady that I interviewed, she actually went to her local library and found more research, and there was a lot of camps and other activities that she was able to send her child to.
Oh, that's great.
So the mother that I interviewed has an adolescent daughter who this coming year is going to transition into middle school. So she took it upon herself to make an action plan and to make sure that teachers and therapists and related services will all be on the same page for her daughter. So that carryover will be there from for the middle school.
That's really, really important as well. So I have one additional question for you, if we have a moment, to just find out if there are any resources that you could suggest for families.
So I know it takes a lot to be an advocate. You have to really be confident, and sometimes you do need that extra help. So the Education Law Center in Philadelphia has advocates there that you can hire just for extra help.
Yeah, well, that's great. Great advice. You know, we're so happy that you had the opportunity to do this. So we're going to take a quick break now, and we'll return, and we're going to meet 3 other graduate students in just a moment. So stay with us.
You look incredible. Did you go tanning? Yeah, check it out. I'm jealous. Best spring break ever. No. You're getting so tan. Finals are the worst.
I'm so glad they're over.
We need some sun.
I can't believe our friends are getting married.
She looks amazing. Where's your tan? I can't go tanning anymore. Doctor's orders. It's melanoma. I'm stage 3.
Melanoma is the second most common cancer for young women, 15 to 29. Protect yourself. Protect your friends. Stop tanning. Learn more at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Hi again, welcome back to our show. We're talking about transition planning for those young people and their families affected by autism spectrum disorders. As part of a graduate course, I enlisted the help of several of our graduate students in interviewing families who are facing challenges and issues with transition planning for their loved ones with autism. And before we went on break, we heard from 3 other graduate students, and now you're going to hear from 3 additional graduate students who are in the course on autism spectrum disorders that were in my class during the summer. So let me introduce you. This is Kelsey Mahone, hello, Samantha DeMora, and Alicia McCarrick. And they interviewed the 3 individuals you are shortly going to meet. So let me ask all of you a question. As students who are learning about working with people with autism, what did you learn from conducting these interviews?
So I had the opportunity to interview a man with high-functioning autism. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when he was 14 years old. And so my answer really depends on the level of the person, but for children with high-functioning autism, I learned that to better help them with transitions and gaining their independence, we have to let them make mistakes along the way, so and put them in real-life situations by allowing them to learn from these mistakes.
That's so important and hard to do,
Yeah.
especially as a parent. Samantha?
So I was lucky enough to interview Isley, who you guys will meet later. And through this process, I learned the importance of family support with this population, as well as the importance of being flexible and being willing to adapt to the changes that may arise in everyday life, and also the importance of educating yourself before you're able to fully educate others. So before Isley's daughter was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, she told me that she was relatively not that knowledgeable about the disorder, and after the diagnosis, she informed me that she had fully immersed herself in the autism spectrum disorder culture and kind of educated herself to the fullest extent in order to be the best advocate for her daughter. Mm-hmm. And one day I hope that I can take everything I've learned through this process, kind of coupled with the medical background of the speech pathology degree, and be the best advocate that I can for those who cannot as well.
Sounds wonderful. Yeah, thank you. And Alicia, tell us a little about what you think.
I think the biggest takeaway from my interview with Jim is realizing that autism goes beyond the services that I will provide as a speech-language pathologist. And I also thought one of the other things that I learned is that it's important to be sensitive to what the family is enduring, whether that's financial, emotional, or the logistics of getting help, and making sure that help is timely.
Yeah, I would say all those are great and important points. And so based on your insights and ideas, do you have any suggestions for individuals who are thinking about the transition process?
Yeah, I would definitely say to make sure that you are discussing transition at the child's IEP meetings, and making sure that that's done in their early teen years so that there's no gaps or delays in the child's education.
Mm-hmm, very important.
I would say also just accept your child for who they are and kind of take their lead with what they're interested in and whatever talents that they might have, and kind of hone the transition process towards those kind of talents. So for example, Isley's daughter really enjoys cooking, and she even uses a cookbook especially made for children with autism, which is through the Autism and Asperger's publishing company, and they also have a website with a lot of other resources on there as well. But she uses that in order to hone her craft, and that's just a really good insight of where she will go within her transition process in the future.
Yeah, that's very good that she shared that with you and that you saw that.
And I have some advice for parents who have children with autism who are about to transition. I think it's really important to let them make mistakes and be able to problem solve for themselves, so they can learn from those mistakes and have greater opportunity for learning and help in the future.
That's great. Really good suggestions. So it's really been a pleasure having the opportunity to talk with you, and now we're going to move on and meet the family members who you interviewed. And so we'll get with that and we'll be right back.
My name is Blake. I received a heart transplant when I was 2 weeks old. I play defense for the Red Hot Tornadoes. Sometimes my heart starts pounding like faster and faster as I go. I know I have someone else's heart inside me. It makes me feel happy because someone was generous enough to give me a second chance to live.
This gift of life was made possible by an organ donor. Imagine what you could make possible. Sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov.
My name is Caitlin. I'm 6 years old. I like to go to the beach with my cousins. When I was a baby, I was very sick. And then I got a liver transplant from an organ donor. He saved my life.
This gift of life was made possible by an organ donor. Imagine what you could make possible. Sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov.
Take a good look at yourself. Oh, yeah. Check that smooth backside. No, really, check it. If you're a man over 50, you're in the group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma. When detected early, skin cancer is highly treatable. Check yourself out and find someone else to help. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Hi, welcome back to our show on transition planning for those young people affected by autism spectrum disorders. Now we're going to meet 3 individuals personally living with autism. Thank you for being here. It's really great and important. We're so grateful for your time. First is Sam. Sam was diagnosed with Asperger's at 14 years old and currently works with youth on the autism spectrum, and I happen to know firsthand he's doing an amazing job. And next you will meet Isley. She's the mother of an 11-year-old daughter who's approaching middle school. And finally, you will meet Jim. He's the father of a 32-year-old daughter who has been through many transitions with autism. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So, Sam, if you could give us a little bit of insight from your basis, from your experience, what is advice regarding skills, transitions that you have for family members that you'd like to share?
I would like to share that, remember that your children are individuals themselves, that at some point they have to make decisions for themselves. Whether they're good or bad decisions, I would say the big thing about the transition to college is that they're 2 hours away or across the country. You are no longer there, and for both the child and you have to be, ready for that and allow them to make their own decisions. Because it's the biggest teaching tool, and on top of that, realizing that your child's going through everything that everyone else is going through when they go to college. In college, nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they want to do with their life or has very little idea. So just reminding yourself and reminding your child that everyone is the same, I think, as you. I think that's the difference between high school and college. In high school, it's all about being on the spectrum and trying to act normal. But in college, you are put on the same playing field as everyone else, which is what I think parents have wanted all along, what the kids have wanted all along. Everyone is at the same, trying to figure out who they are as an adult, away from mom and dad, making their own decisions. Everyone's learning to make decisions. Mm-hmm. So I think for families and people on the spectrum, that's the big thing.
So my question is, how did this change you? How did you change as you were going through college to, you're talking about learning and being an individual. Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you would want parents or an individual himself to know, to look out for?
I think looking to step outside your comfort zone. I spent my first 2 years of college sitting in my dorm watching movies with like 2 or 3 friends. I'm like, this is not the college experience, not what I've seen in the movies. So I went out and started having the typical college experience, and I made a lot of mistakes and made fun of myself for it, and just instead of having anxiety, just having fun with these mistakes. And what did I learn? And trying again myself. And I think that's the big thing, is instead of having anxiety over mistakes, try to have fun with it. It's okay to make fun of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've mentioned about some of the situations you found yourself in mm-hmm. that you ended up learning from. Can you think of one example to share with the audience?
I think the basic example is I stopped introducing I stopped talking about my autism. I used to say I'm autistic and using that as my crutch, my reason for all my behavior. Like, no, I did this because this is who I am, and autism has nothing to do with it. Instead, people are like, oh, you have autism, not a big deal, because it's now today I have this reaction. People jerk their head way back. You're on the spectrum, but you don't twitch, you don't do anything wild. You articulate. Well, I learned that by actually trying to make friends and. Why'd you do that? Well, I'm quirky, or
It's being more at peace with yourself.
And that's how I got people to accept me. They saw I'm at peace with it, therefore they can be at peace with me. Be on the spectrum.
That's great. Great advice. Okay, Isley, so happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about the advice and sharing you can regarding transition for families today.
Well, first of all, the important thing is to have a great support system. A lot of times when families get that word about having a diagnosis for their child, they go through the different stages of emotion and sometimes lose family and friends, and relationships tend to get a little rocky. So having a support system is very important, to have someone around you, whether it's certain organizations. That's the first key.
Yeah, and I know the ladder program has been really invaluable to you.
Absolutely. I would not be here if it wasn't for the ladder program at LaSalle University. Great support systems, the marriage and family staff, social workers. Everyone has just been amazing, and they're basically like family.
And what are your plans for your daughter now as you're approaching middle school with her? You were somebody who interviewed you was talking about that a little bit.
It's important to stay ahead of the game, as I always say, to kind of be proactive. And so making sure that I have a behavioral specialist consultant by our side, because through different transitions, we know that as the children get older, they have different things that they experience. And just, also just making sure that she has that one-to-one in the classroom setting with her. She's in a regular ed classroom. So in order for her to be successful, to keep her on task, to have that support throughout the day, keeping her involved in programs, and especially through transition, wanting to know what she wants to do, because she has her own personality.
Yeah, and I know how much you work with her and how much you've guided her along the years in teaching her yourself. So
absolutely,
that's great advice.
Thank you.
And Jim.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your transitional experiences over your time with your daughter, who's now 32.
Right, and I've been in education and working with special needs folks for about 40 years myself, but it's a whole different ballgame being the parent of a child with a disability. So Jessie came along, I guess at a point when 4 years after we were married, and my wife and I, realizing the situation, saw the changes that occurred in her and all the things that we had to look forward to. And a lot of the initial outlook was always very bleak and somber. But we did move on, and when transition time came for Jessica, being on the severe range or severe end of the spectrum, it was really challenging to find any kind of programming or activities, any kind of post-educational activities, opportunities for her to be involved in. We realized that the group home situations, and those were in the range of 4,000 to 5,000 people of a waiting list. And so that's always been a big challenge. So we always had a problem in looking into see what was going to be Jessica's future. Again, Jessica is nonverbal, having a lot of issues with behavior and things like that. But today is content at age 32 and doing well with her group home a day program she's at this point.
So what advice do you guys have for family members? If you had one quick sentence that you could share, what would it be?
I would say that if you can, to go right into looking at programs now, no matter what your child's age is, even at age 10, 11, 12, and then really start focusing at age 14, 15.
Okay.
But also get connections within the political aspect within your community. And then lastly is look at universities like LaSalle and programs like Meeting the Tools program.
The Tools program?
Tools program here in Philadelphia, yes.
Okay, we have to remember that one.
Yeah, same thing as Jim. I definitely believe in, again, having that support system in place. Because emotionally, it hits us hard. And a lot of times, the parents, they want to get help. However, the individuals that are trying to help us are focusing on the kids. So, providing yourself with, having There's a Pennsylvania Education All Coalition, they're called PEAK, they're parent consultants, and also the Pill Center. These are amazing programs that can help during transitions all the way through to adulthood.
Very important, yeah. And Sam?
I think the big thing is to involve your kids in their own plans. They don't have to become experts in autism themselves, but how autism affects them. As an educator myself, teaching kids on the spectrum at Yale, often they have no idea what autism is, and I think if they just understood the reason why their brain works the way it does, it would be easier for them to move forward into transitions like college.
Yeah, that's good advice. All very knowledgeable and experienced. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having this opportunity to talk with you today, with the graduate students and with the family members, and I want to thank you for your willingness to share. I also want to give you a little information. I think you're going to see the information on the screen. There's something called the Adult Autism Waiver and the Adult Community Autism Program. And there's a phone number for that. It's 866-539-7689. And to check out the information also on the information referral tool by typing in to the Google or web browser PA DHS Autism Services. And also, don't forget about the Ladder program, an amazing program with great people and lots of resources to help you with everything. And so that number is 215-991-2945, and you can just type into Google or your browser Ladder LaSalle. Okay, so thank you. It's been a great opportunity to be here today with you, and I hope you found this information beneficial.